Hey everyone, happy Thursday. Hope everybody's having a great week. I'm outside. It is relatively decent today, but it is very humid here in North Carolina. But at any rate, there's three things I want to talk about today. The first is the Senate just had the vote to hold Fauci in contempt of Congress, and it passed, but for some strange reason, the Save America Act has not passed yet. I don't know what it's going to take to get John Thune to bring this vote to the floor, but it seems that he's got other priorities. The low-hanging fruit seems to be where he wants to focus the time and effort. I would say that between the Save America Act and holding Fauci accountable, I would say the Save America Act would actually have more of an impact on our lives because it'll directly impact elections. Fauci is satisfying on a level of just like, yeah, we want to see the guy get prosecuted for something, but is that more important than getting the Save America Act passed? No, I don't think so. And the fact that they continue to bring other stuff to the floor and not the Save America Act is absurd at this point. I don't know what it's going to take to, what kind of deal, backroom deal is going to happen in order to get this passed, but I don't understand. The second thing that I want to talk about is why Spider-Man's success is important, more specifically to the media space, and this goes in regard to music and movies. For the longest time, and I've talked about this in another episode, actually I think a few episodes, but there's been this thought that pushing woke ideology into movies and having music artists come out and voice their, in many cases, absurd political opinions is a good idea. And it doesn't, for musical artists, they're like, I don't care about those people that don't agree with me. They shouldn't be buying my album anyways. Well, your album sales are down. And then on the movie side, you have a good example like Snow White, where you had the lead actress crapping all over the original content, and thinking that wasn't going to affect millions of people, and generations upon generations upon generations that grew up with the story of Snow White understand its kind of meaning, and to crap all over it is to crap all over what millions of people enjoy, and so not good. And then on the other hand, there's the case where you inject this ideology into movies, and then people just don't want to buy it and they don't want to see it. James Gunn is feeling the heat now because Spider-Man has, in one weekend, produced more revenue than the movies that he just released, which are Superman and Supergirl. I happened to go see Superman. It was not good. And I didn't even bother seeing Supergirl because Superman was so bad. And also I didn't like the way they introduced Supergirl at the end of Superman. It didn't present a movie that I wanted, or a character that I wanted to see in a full-length movie. But Spider-Man is just a movie that is a good popcorn flick. It doesn't try to push any ideology. It doesn't actually make the female villain in this completely unlikable. And it does provide some context as to why she's doing things that she's doing. Now, people can agree or disagree on her motivation, but at least there was motivation there. We're arguing over whether the motivation was great enough for her to make the decisions that she did in the start of the movie. And ultimately, at the end of the movie, should she have been able to, leave without repercussions? I think there were repercussions, but nonetheless, the argument was never and hasn't been over whether or not, she had motivation. The argument is whether the motivation was enough. In my personal opinion, yeah. But at any rate, the point is that Spider-Man puts out a formula of how superhero movies should be made, where you need to have actual heroes, you need to have a hero's journey, and you need to have villains that have a relative backstory that makes sense, or motivation in general that makes sense. And that's what's been missing. If you look at any of the Star Wars stuff, you look at any of the, again, I'll focus on Disney. If you look at anything that Disney's putting out, they're having a hard time with villains. As a matter of fact, they've been essentially sympathizing or creating villains that are supposed to be likable. You can see this in their Cruella movie. You can see this in, virtually any movie where we grew up where the villain wasn't like a fully fleshed out character, for good reason. Again, you can look at Snow White, you can look at other ones where the villain is supposed to be bad, but then they're giving the villain all this backstory that makes him sympathetic, and you're like, what are we even doing right now? In Star Wars, they tried to make the Empire a sympathetic organization. No, like, what are you doing? But again, Spider-Man presents a great opportunity for resets across the spectrum, whether it's superhero movies or whether it's just generic popcorn flicks. Like, stop injecting all of this politics into it. People want to go to the movies to escape, and Spider-Man was a perfect example of people being able to go escape reality for 2.5 hours, and just enjoy something that had a great story and good characters, and wasn't trying to preach to us throughout. Like, again, it's important. And I hope that other franchises take note and make the changes. It seems that the Marvel Universe may be making some significant changes with the canceling of certain shows and the canceling of certain movies. Although I wish they would just find the original Blade writers and have them write another Blade movie and just do it. Have a nice handoff from, say, the OG Blade, Wesley Snipes, to a new Blade, Mahershala Ali. He'd have made a great Blade. But I think there's a way to do it, and that's a character that generally everybody likes and is dying for a movie to be made. But what we don't want is it to be like Blade comes out and talks about how he's repressed because he's black. He's a vampire hunter. He kills people. He kills vampires, more specifically. And he's a badass. Like, do you think Blade wakes up thinking about his skin color and how his life is so difficult as a daywalker? Like, no, nobody wants to hear that story. They also don't want to see a female take over the Blade role because it's just not true to form. And it's going to turn a bunch of people off, similar to like why there was uproar about a black female getting the title 007 and then nicely giving it back to him before he ends up dying at the end of that movie anyways. But what, like, anyways. The last thing I want to talk about is I was watching earlier, last night I saw the release of Tucker's announcement, forming a third party. I am not the target audience, clearly, for Tucker's third party. I think there's a lot of overlap in the things that Tucker kind of highlighted, and I'm going to go through them. Axios did a great job of breaking it down. Tim Pool talked about this earlier, so I don't want to, not give him credit for covering this. I think the I think the way that Tim covered it misses some points. But in general, I agree with Tim's kind of sentiment and take on it. But I think there's some differences here. So number one on the list was fairness. And this is, again, from the Axios article, kind of summarizing the 10 key points. But the same rules should apply to presidents, federal agents, and elites as Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know I'm doing this. I hate when people bring up Jeffrey Epstein, who Impunity Carlson cast as emblematic of the Epstein class, enriching itself through the corrupt system. Now, the framing that Tim had was right, but also let's just make it very specific. Let's say Tucker Carlson is president or vice president or in the administration of this third party, and his son Buckley gets arrested for a DUI. Do you think that Tucker is not going to pull strings and leverage his power to make sure that his son doesn't get prosecuted? Do you think he's going to let his son hang out to dry? No, absolutely not. He's going to leverage his power. He's going to leverage, the administration to make sure that they apply pressure maybe at the state level, or make a deal to make sure that his son doesn't serve a day in jail. That's just what anybody would do. And that's why I don't agree with this whole framing. It's like the Epstein class is just a new name for the current elite class. It's a dumb name for a multitude of reasons, because the Epstein class is mostly Democrats, very few Republicans, and it's just a way to try to tag it to Trump, even though Trump basically disowned Epstein decades ago. But if, what will the elite's name be when Tucker's in power? What, the Tucker class? Is it going to be the libertarian class? What is it going to be? Because there are always going to be elites in society, and that's just how this whole thing works. No matter whether you're in a democratic republic that we have here, or you have communism or socialism. I would say communism and socialism is even worse, because you have people in power that just have wealth and riches because of their status, not that they earned it. And then everybody else is in a lower class and sitting in bread lines and doing all that stuff. But at any rate, I don't agree with Tucker's take there. I think it's ridiculous. So then he goes on, number two, sovereign. Carlson claimed Israel pushed the U.S. into a war through bribery or a threat or both, while describing foreign lobbying, corporate control of government, and high interest debt as forms of slavery. True, but here's where I just ignore these people. It's when they always talk about Israel. Israel is not the biggest lobby, foreign lobby in the U.S. And the fact that there's a specific focus on Israel, I think says more about an individual and their own motivations than them being truthful. Because for a fact, the top three, and by the way, the top five, I think even the top 10, are not Israel in the lobbying category. Number one is China at $563 billion. Number two is Japan at $504 billion. And number three is Liberia at $433 billion. Now, people talk about AIPAC. AIPAC is not the largest lobby, US-based lobby. There's a whole bunch of other lobbies. The biggest one is the Chamber of Commerce. But there's a whole bunch of other lobbies, and specifically, even if you look at campaign finance and PACs, AIPAC isn't even on the top 5 list by far of PACs. There's a whole bunch of other PACs that provide significantly more funding for candidates. AIPAC is probably the largest single issue PAC that's out there, sure. but they are not the largest PAC by a mile. They don't even, they, just like Israel, they don't even hit the list. And so this focus on, AIPAC and Israel, again, says more about the individual and their own motivations than wanting to, be consistent or actually care about campaign finance more broadly. 3 is productivity. Sorry, 3 is productivity or productive. America should rebuild farming, manufacturing, craftsmanship while rejecting an economy dominated by finance, real estate speculation, surveillance systems, and weapons. Sure, weapons manufacturers are always going to do well. Our military needs surpluses for a what if scenario, like what if we start bombing Iran, or what if we need to provide an Iron Dome to Israel, or what if we need to provide an Iron Dome to Ukraine to defend against Russia, or what if China invades Taiwan? Or what if we need to solve some problems in South America regarding cartels? The weapons manufacturers will always be there, and we need them to be there. We need them to be functional. Now, I think there is a change of sea happening in regards to weapons manufacturers with the ascension of companies like Anduril, and I think more of those are going to come out. But at any rate, the one that's on here, because I generally, I kind of agree with this, but I also don't. Finance, being dominated by finance. So Tim made the point of people that are making money that don't really do anything. They're just making money off their money. Okay, here's the reality here. All of those people that have, let's say, millions or billions of dollars that are just sitting back and not being productive in the economy, their money is productive. Because their money is held in banks. They're living off interest. Those banks that are providing the interest on the money in which those people are holding in their banks is what's fueling the economy. Without banks being able to lend, businesses wouldn't exist. Farms couldn't expand. Farms couldn't get loans to buy things or have revolving credit lines. And so these wealthy people that aren't productive individually, their money is actually very productive in the whole scheme of things. And again, I agree that, it's just, I don't like the fact that there are people out there that inherited wealth and just make money off of it and aren't productive individually. Well, not all of them are productive, but again, their money sits in banks. Those banks take that money to make money on it, to then be able to provide the interest rates, but also provide back loans in which they can make interest off of those loans. It's just how capitalism works. Without the banks, there would be none of this. I wouldn't be able to get a loan for this house. None of it would exist. Businesses wouldn't be able to get loans to make acquisitions or to have all this CapEx spending that is happening out there. To build data centers and to do other things. Number 4, beautiful. Carlson argued that urban planners deliberately uglified American cities, portrayed brutalist architecture, graffiti, public drug use, and violent crime as deliberate attacks on the public. I agree with that. Healthy, Carlson embraced RFK Jr.'s agenda, called for universal sobriety, and said widespread use of drugs such as Xanax, Adderall, and SSRIs had left Americans half-addled. Absolutely true. With the exception there, which is I generally agree with everything he's saying here, except alcohol and weed, cigarettes are all personal decisions that people can make, and pushing for essentially universal sobriety, like, it's a great aspirational thing, but everybody should have the personal opportunity to take to drink a beer, to have a good bourbon. It's their body. They can do whatever they want with it, as long as it's legal. 6 is honest. Government officials should be punished for lying to citizens in most classified records, including the JFK assassination and 9/11. 9/11 should be opened. Generally, I agree with this. Couple distinctions here. Holding government officials accountable for lying. There's two sides of this. There is the general lies, like you lied on the campaign trail, you lied about certain things within legality. It wasn't illegal. We vote those people out. That's how we hold them accountable. But if there are people like Fauci, as long as they don't have blanket immunities, yes, we hold them accountable. We prosecute them for lying to Congress, and we should do that. And I generally agree on declassification to a certain extent. There are definitely secrets that need to stay secrets, and this is where Tim and I agree. But there are secrets that should probably stay secret if they are directly tied to national security. I would say 9/11 is probably one of those things. I think at this point we all understand that Saudi Arabia had something to do with it. Now, can we go the extra mile on that? No, because foreign relations need to happen, and it's just unfortunate, but it is what it is. And the JFK assassination, let's say a country that we currently are in good standing with did it or had a hand in it. Is it to our best interest to release that? Probably not. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. 7 Optimistic argued that having children is a biological imperative and the foundation of long-term thinking, while blaming aging and childless elites for policies that disregard future generations. 100% agree. Schools should teach how the physical world actually works and what he called unchanging facts about human nature, including innate differences between a man and a woman, rather than credentials, screens, and technological fads. 100% agree. Dissent. The U.S. should apologize and pay restitution for killing non-combatants, reverse Trump's Department of War rebrand, and stop funding allies that commit what Carlson called genocide, citing Israel. Again, generally disagree with a large portion of this. Restitution for killing non-combatants. Here's the reality of war. If we're going to go into, or any country, it doesn't even have to be the U.S. You can actually see this happening in Ukraine and Russia. As you take over territory, if you're going to take over the territory, it's unfortunate, but the reality of war is that non-combatant males, generally speaking, are killed. This is done for a multitude of reasons. This was done in World War I and World War II. But in order to pacify an area, you need to take out those who would do the most harm, which are usually men. It's unfortunate, but that is war. And then, again, Israel, I don't care about Israel. I think in general, I agree with the statement of we shouldn't be funding others' wars. But Ukraine just dropped a bomb on a Russian beach. I don't see Tucker talking about that. The Ukraine-Russia war on both sides, by the way, are doing what they need to do. I would say that Ukraine is getting a pass because we feel like, they were invaded, which they were, but they're also doing a lot of things that I would say the left would cry are war crimes, but are just looking in a different direction. And I would just say our war. But again, this whole focus on Israel and the way that Israel's prosecuting its war in Gaza, I would again say, what do you think the U.S. would do? What would Tucker Carlson do if a couple thousand cartel members in Mexico crossed the U.S. border and killed like tens of thousands of Texans, Arizonans, Southern Californians, Arizonans? What do you think Tucker Carlson would do? Do you think Tucker Carlson would be like, oh no, we're not going to go in and level these parts of Mexico where these cartels are? He's going to go in and he's going to flatten them. And then the last one is United. Carlson called for halting immigration until the effects of AI could become clearer, ending benefits for undocumented immigrants and making English the sole language of federal documents and ballots. Absolutely. This should have been done a long time ago. If you go to other countries, they don't cater to foreigners. If you go to France, if you want to become a French citizen, you need to learn French and you need to be able to take their exams in French. If you go to any other country, it's the same way. The US is unique in this, and I would say Canada is, to their detriment, is also doing this a bit. Although, interestingly enough, if you want to live in like Quebec, you've got to learn French. It just is what it is, but that's the official language of Quebec, and if you want to live there, you got to learn French. But in America, you should be English. We shouldn't be catering to other countries' languages. Those citizens should have to learn. But I do think we need a moratorium on immigration to the U.S. to essentially get all of these people that are currently here to assimilate. You can't continue to have all of this mass influx of people coming over and then living in pocketed communities, being able to speak their own language, being able to have stores in their own language and all this other, like, at a certain point I was like, yeah, okay, you go to like Chinatown, I get it, but that on a wide scale doesn't work, and it makes Americans who are born and raised here feel alienated in their own country. And so I think that needs to change, and Tucker is spot on there. But again, I think to Tim's broader point, this is a ploy to pull over alienated Democrats and some, I would say, more libertarian-minded, right-leaning folks. Good luck with that. I see through what Tucker is doing. And again, like, I'm not the target audience for Tucker. I have no interest in voting for a Tucker candidacy at this point. My focus is on, what do we need to be doing right now and not the future of who's going to be running in 2028. But let's say, is J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. I'm leaning for one of those two individuals over anything remotely close to a Tucker, Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, any of those folks. I find them ridiculous and backstabbers. And so I have no interest in any of that. But as always, let me know what you think in the comments section below. And, keep believing that the best is still ahead for America. Peace out.